Yeah, you're right in front of the camera. Yeah. Unless you want to be in the shot. Yeah.
Okay, my fearless leader. I'm going to kick this off. Because you're going to do your slides. We have an action-packed, wonderful day today, and I want to just thank all these Earth Angels in the room that are working so hard on behalf of the patients of our region. I want to wish you all a happy Valentine's Week. I think it's a wonderful Valentine's celebration here at Right Care to be able to see the progress from when we started to where we are now in Sacramento. And we'll be hearing many details about it shortly. But for Dr. Revelo and I, we've been working on this since 2012. And in this room, we have gathered on the second Monday of the month since, I forget which month we started in 2012, but it's lovely to see that at least all 5 of our major medical groups in Sacramento have now hit at least one of the clinical targets at the 90th percentile level, which is really, we've really come a long way together as a group, and it has been a lot of hard work from all of you, and we just could not be more appreciative of what you're doing. From the time we started this overall project at the statewide level in 2006, first looking at the data, to then doing statewide meetings starting in 2008, to then starting regional meetings in 2010, first in San Diego, then Sacramento, then Los Angeles, now we're at Stanford. Now, with the publication of the Health Affairs article indicating 3,826 fewer acute myocardial infarction hospitalizations associated with our work, which is a 22% very rapid decline based on meeting these metrics in one community and associated with 86 million in savings. Some of our leadership were invited back to the Centers for Disease Control in September, where we met with the new leadership team for cardiovascular disease, including the new medical director for the Million Hearts program. And since we saw you last, I have had something like 10 hours of meetings with the National Million Hearts director, by phone and in person, and he's very interested in growing this work even nationally. And so we'll see where that goes, how it evolves, but it's a we thing. The Right Care Initiative is all of us. And together, thank you, all of you, for what you've done to make it possible. Because every single person in this room has been part of what makes us want to roll a happy song as we start these meetings in this room going forward. So thank you, Earth Angels, and I want to introduce a great Earth Angel in our region. Elizabeth Helms has been a true believer in the Right Care Initiative as the chief executive of the California Chronic Care Coalition. She started it a couple years after I started Right Care Initiative, and we've been really close partners along the way. So one of the greatest reasons we're happy is that we have an actual patient in this room who has benefited from one of the innovations, the TPA, that helped him to survive a stroke. There were so many pieces that did. And Liz, when she found out about his story, created a video with the team that saved his life. So we'll be seeing that. And Liz, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Hattie. Hello, everyone. Sorry, my voice is a little scratchy. Hopefully someday it'll come back. For those of you that know me, Liz Helms without a voice is like not being able to drive a car. So anyway, thank you, Hattie, for letting us come in today. I'm so excited to share this story. The Chronic Care Coalition came together to really focus in on what was happening out in the communities and what was happening to people themselves, and we became very interested in what was happening up in Paradise, California, in Chico, during one of the biggest crises California has ever seen. And for me, it was even more home-hitting because I had several friends that had lost their homes. I live in the foothills, kind of in a similar situation of Paradise, could happen to us. And so we went to Paradise. We also knew that there were contract issues that were going on, and we wanted to find out what could we do as a coalition to really help make changes up there. So the California Health Collaborative, which our chair of the California Chronic Care Coalition is the vice chair of Joan Werblin. Thank you, Joan, for everything. So we were talking to the collaborative, and so we want to come up and talk to some of the patients that were there that experienced going through this catastrophic fire. And we knew that Venice was burned down. The emergency room was left standing, and so we were working on some ideas there with Senator Nielsen's office. So when we went to the collaborative, we sat down to talk to Bruce because we knew he had had a stroke. And once we really got into the conversation, we decided to really highlight what happened to him. But when you see these puzzle pieces coming together, it's what happens in a devastating crisis when everything is maxed out, that you don't know if you're going to get an ambulance, you don't know if 911 is going to be there to answer the phone, you don't know if your pharmacies have burned down, your doctor offices have burned down, your hospital has burned down, and you're in the middle of a stroke. What do you do? And so this is putting the pieces together on how we got the care, or we didn't, but Bruce got the care that he needed. He got to Enloe. Enloe coordinated with UC Davis. So you're going to see our star, Dr. Balmer and Dr. Ng, in this video, and how this all came together. And then Bruce is going to come up and share part of his story.
Past decade, California has been on fire. From the Tubbs, Camp, and Kincaid fires in the north to large swaths of heavily populated areas in the south, the state just can't escape Mother Nature's extreme fire conditions. Despite the destruction that has left hundreds dead, tens of thousands homeless, and its infrastructure strained to the limit, people with emergency medical needs are getting the help they need when they need it.
2 o'clock that morning, my dog came and woke me up. I tried to get up to let her out and fell on the floor. I was in the middle of having a stroke.
Bruce Baldwin lost one home to the Camp Fire in Paradise, California, and was in the process of cleaning up a second.
There was kind of ash on anything that was flat.
Just days after being allowed back home, when the unthinkable happened. He called 911, not knowing how long it would take to get help. Help got there quickly, and he was rushed to Enloe Hospital in Chico, California. Once at Enloe, doctors consulted with the stroke team at UC Davis Medical Center in Sacramento and determined that giving Bruce the clot-busting drug TPA soon after his arrival was key.
The time window which we think TPA should be given is between 0 and 4.5 hours. It works by attaching itself to a clot and starts to break that clot down. And when it breaks that clot down, it dissolves it. And when that happens, it restores blood flow to the brain, allowing restoration of function.
Once stabilized to transport, Bruce was rushed down to UC Davis for further treatment.
When I rolled out of that ambulance at UC Davis, there was probably 20 people. It was really like something out of a movie, you know? There was just a sea of people in blue scrubs waiting to help me.
One thing that's really important in this particular case is that there was a huge team involved in treating Bruce. It was coordination of the team that was at Enloe, their stroke team, with myself as a connecting physician, and then when he got here, he was connected to our stroke team here.
The timing of Bruce's stroke couldn't have been worse. His local hospital, Feather River, was nearly completely destroyed in the Camp Fire. As a result, a statewide plan was implemented and expanded to include Paradise, which is now considered a rural and isolated area.
So we do have an ambulance system set up. We have to transport them. Sometimes it requires air flight as well. And that emergency medical transfer system is set up for the entire state of California. So no matter where you are, we can identify where your shortest route is to effective therapy.
Dr. Balmer says that having a plan in place is especially critical in times of natural disaster. That plan worked perfectly for Bruce. From his drug intervention and treatment in Chico,
I think Enloe saved my life, essentially, if not my life, at least my ability to have a normal life by giving me the drug and getting everything done as quickly as they could.
to his transport and care at UC Davis.
I feel like the fact that I ended up at UC Davis was the best result I could have hoped for. I got great care there. I got really, really good rehab care there.
Bruce was given a second chance at life because the system worked in a time of chaos and uncertainty.
There you go.
Would you please welcome to the podium Bruce Baldwin?
So I am the actual patient, which you guys see every day, I'm sure. And you know, it's hard for me to see that video right now. I haven't seen it a couple of times. They interviewed me not long after the stroke, and it's hard for me to see how much my face is drooping at that point in time. And I didn't really realize it then, but you know, it's very clear to me now. So before I start thanking all the people that helped me, you saw it at the end, my beautiful daughter, and her name's Gemma, and as I mentioned there, she woke me up that night, but she woke me up, I was sleeping on the couch because the house was just destroyed, and I just had to keep all the windows open because of all the smoke and everything, so I just pulled the couch up for the wood stove, opened everything up. She came up about an hour after I went to bed and just hit me with her paw, whack. She's never done anything like that. She'll tap me when she wants me to scratch her belly, but never woke me up that way before. And I went, leave me alone, you know, and she did it again. And so I tried to get up and let her out. I thought she wanted out, but she didn't. She just wanted me to get up. Of course, when I got up, I fell down. I was paralyzed on my left side. I also didn't mention that when they got me to Enloe and they did the CT scan, they pulled me in and they said, we're going to give you the TPA. They went through the whole thing, and I said, yes. They said, listen, we have to ship you to UC Davis because you have a clot right up here in the middle of your brain and you need to have surgery. We can't do that here. That was why they shipped me to UC Davis. When I got there, of course, there was all those people. They immediately did another CT scan. And after a while, all those people started to go away, and I'm like, laying there, and I'm like, when are we going to do the surgery? Is it just kind of critical? She said, well, we did the CT scan on it, and the clot's gone. We can't find it. So we're waiting on Dr. Ng to clear it, but we don't think we're going to have to do the surgery. So listen, to Gentech, Ed, people that develop TPA, to the doctors that gave it to me, thank you. You know, because frankly, and my dog, because if she hadn't woke me up, you know, I've been one of those people you hear about laying there for 3 days before somebody found him, you know. But so thanks to everyone. That's my main message today. The first responders, the dispatcher that answered the 911 call. The woman who was driving the ambulance that took me from my home in Decatur down to Animal Hospital. The guys in the ambulance were like, try to make it down there without burning up. So I'm like, what? Her ambulance had been caught in the campfire and burned to the ground. And she was working a week later, you know, to get me to the hospital. I mean, everyone involved. The quality of care and the dedication, I just can't tell you how much I appreciate it. So thanks, Dr. Ballmer, to UC Davis, to InMode, to everyone involved, because I'm feeling like my life's pretty back to normal now, and I'm really grateful for that. Thank you all.
So I do have one question for you, if you could go back to the podium for a minute, and some others might have questions.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Could you say to everyone else what you said about your fellow patients that don't know about TPA?
Oh, you know, I'm not shy about, like, Hattie asked me to take my thing off, and I'm like, don't you know I had a stroke? That kind of stuff's hard for me, right? I'm not shy about it. If I go to the bank and I can't turn pages to my left hand, I still don't have any feeling in my left hand, I'll get paid. Can you help me turn pages? I guess, you know, it's amazing how many people that respond with, oh, you know, my uncle had a stroke, my mother had a stroke. And we talk about it, and when I mentioned TPA, so few people have heard of it. They really don't know about it, you know. And I mean, I just talked to somebody the other day who's had a family member who had a stroke a couple of months ago. And I mean, I don't know if her mother knew about it, but she didn't know about it. And I think, you know, getting the word out, you know, that time is critical. That getting people that TPA quickly, it's just really, you know, because I know it made all the difference for me, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Yes?
I have a sneaky suspicion that your first responder was your dog smelled your stroke.
Oh, yeah, it was absolutely my dog. There's no question. If there's anything you guys could do to train dogs to be like, there's no question she woke me up because she knew something was wrong.
Exactly.
I have no doubt of that, yeah.
Jim Kerwin is with the American Diabetes Association, and I heard you say your dog smelled something. Could you say more about what you know about?
Well, for diabetes, they've trained dogs. For diabetes, I'm type 2, so I don't use insulin. But they've trained dogs to smell the need for insulin. And the analogy of a dog's smell is what we see in Technicolor. If you look, you see all the colors in the room, and the red and the green. The dog smells that way. I mean, it's that vivid. So they have smells that are, you know, I think the only thing that has better smell is a grizzly bear, and I don't think we want that for pets. But that's where they train dogs for, well, of course, they use them at the airports. They're the best mass spectrometer chromatograph that there is, better than what we make. So that's why I said that, and I love dogs, and
There's no question in my mind that she was my first responder. She knew something was wrong. I don't think she could put it in the words or dial 911, but she definitely knew to wake me up.
Yeah.
But yes. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bruce. I think that tells more about why we are here today than perhaps anything else we've presented in the last year. So thank you for that message. So here we are in Sacramento, 2020, as we look ahead to the next year. In the time it's taken since Bruce sat down, there has been another individual in the U.S. who has had a stroke. every 40 seconds in the US, someone has a stroke. So it's a significant population problem for us. And you can see that about 11% of people who have strokes worldwide actually die of them, so they can be deadly and disabling. And in the next year, we expect in the US about 795,000 strokes for that. So it's a significant number that is there. And as you can see, the emphasis today is how can we reduce those numbers? How can we make some progress for that? Well, the first thing is not all of us had that trained dog with us at the time. If someone else in your house recognizes that you're having a stroke, this is an app that RightCare has promoted. One of our members has actually developed this application. It goes on your cell phone. It's the Stroke Awareness Foundation. It identifies the nearest hospital, tells you the distance, if they're stroke capable at that point in time. And I have tried it. It works anywhere in the USA. It will identify in any state the nearest stroke awareness hospital where you can go to. And if you push the red button, it will notify 911. It will bring an ambulance to your physician or your GPS based on the cell phone at that time. So this is a very helpful thing for what Bruce needed, immediate care for an acute stroke. So that's an important aspect. But we'd like to go beyond just treating immediate acute strokes. Our interest is to try to prevent them as well. And how are we doing in California and in Sacramento? This shows the target or the hotspots in red. And of course, you see the center target hotspot is Sacramento County, where we are sitting today. So we are sitting in the midst of a hotspot with a very high rate of ischemic stroke occurrence per hospitalized patients. So this is a stroke hotbed that we're here, and that's why we're here today to talk about ways of reducing stroke. So how can we prevent the stroke from occurring in the first place, or if you've had a stroke, prevent a second one from occurring? Prevention is the best way to proceed. Now, about half of the strokes, as you see on the left side here, are related to atherosclerotic disease, and lacunar strokes are related to hypertension. So high blood pressure and cholesterol and atherosclerotic disease are part in about half of all strokes that we have. So that's certainly an emphasis that we have for reducing strokes, is reducing atherosclerosis. And with that, RightCare has championed 2020 ways to live longer in Sacramento and in the state of California as well. These are all ways that have been shown at one point or another to reduce risk. And the highlight here is the top ones. Blood pressure is probably the priority that we are working on. Reduction of weight, reduction of cholesterol, smoking, those are the priority ones we've highlighted. But we will also touch on some of the other known ways of reducing risk as we go through 2020 for that. Now, this is a huge list or a to-do wish that is beyond most people. I'm not saying that you have to follow every one of these items, but if you can pick up a couple of these, you will go a long way to reducing the risk of atherosclerotic disease, heart attacks, and stroke. So don't try to do everyone today, but if you can pick off a few of these, gradually they start adding up for further risk reduction as we go through here. Now, the risk factors of stroke do add to age and to heredity for that, or genetics. So we know that there's a lot played by getting older and the genes you were born with. But about half of all the risk or more is probably related to things that we can actually change. We can reduce cholesterol, we have treatment for it. We can certainly reduce or control blood pressure, that's why we're here today. We can help reduce obesity. We can work on improving air quality and reduce smoking and other things as well. So those things add up. How much do they add up? Well, if we look at one of the studies that was done in 52 countries across the world, every ethnic group was included. You can see in the InterHeart study, these are the things that cause heart attacks that are associated with it. And by reducing them, we presumably can reduce those events. So smoking is a risk factor, diabetes, high blood pressure, abdominal obesity, stress, as well as high cholesterol, or LDL, are all risk factors. If we can reduce those, and a lot of those are reducible with control in a medical therapy program as well as a lifestyle program. If we can reduce those, we reduce our chance of heart attacks for that. The things we want to encourage are that reduce by themselves are increasing fruits and vegetables, increasing exercise, and moderate alcohol have all been shown to be reducing the risk of heart disease as well. Now, the important thing about those are all somewhat achievable by us, and you can see in the InterHeart study, they explained about 90% of the population attributable risk of having a myocardial infarction. So almost all of the risk is approachable if we start chipping away at some of these risk factors. Not a little, almost all of it could potentially go away by chipping away at these risk factors. Those are the risk factors for having a heart attack, the InterHeart study. A parallel trial, which is the InterStroke trial, looked at the same type of thing, risk factors for having a stroke. And if we look here, the odds ratio of having a stroke in the InterStroke trial, where high blood pressure, stress, high cholesterol, smoking, obesity, diabetes. Very, very similar to what we had in the InterHeart study. Heart disease and stroke really are running along the same risk factors for it. And the things that reduce stroke were a diet, a healthy diet, and exercise also were associated with it. Very similar to heart disease. So when we talk about cardiovascular risk factors, it does include almost all of the stroke risk factors as well. So reducing stroke is very helpful in that situation. The National Stroke Association has simplified some of those from the InterStroke study to the following. You can see, try to reduce smoking, healthy weight, be active or exercise, watch what you eat, as well as checking high blood pressure with your physician, get that under control.